The Oblivion Remaster is here, but did the visual overhaul remove some of the magic, or did it enhance it? Here are my first impressions of the new remaster. So, bugs are expected, and honestly, I'm glad they didn't remove the good ones. Some of the physics in Oblivion just make it better. It is part of the game's charm, unless, of course, it's the game-breaking type. Now, my very first experience with the game was that it became completely unplayable right after the character creator. It didn't technically crash, but I went into the menu system, it bugged out, and even quitting and restarting couldn't fix the game. I had to delete and reinstall. I haven't had an issue like that since, and I think it could have been just a bad install. One of the biggest changes is the characters' faces and facial animations. They were never great, but with these new graphics, they are terrible in the best way possible. Like, look at this dude. This thing will haunt your dreams. And he isn't the only one. They all look messed up. Look at this woman. What is wrong with her face? It's like they had a blind plastic surgeon. It looks so bad, it's great. But even with that goofiness, it is still Oblivion, and it's a great game, and there is no denying that. There is one thing though that does bug me, and it feels like it has lost its magic in a way. And I'm not talking about spell casting, but the magical atmosphere of the world. The way it looked and felt. Not that this doesn't look better graphically, because it does. It looks 1,000 times better, but it's missing that fantasy feel that it used to have. It's weird to explain, but if you played the original, I think you might notice it. I think a lot of it has to do with the change in textures and the change in the art style. In the original game, they took pictures of real-world elements and handcrafted textures based on those surfaces. This remaster doesn't do that. They look more generic, and it lacks that same look and feel of a handcrafted experience. The new textures look amazing though. It's just a drastic change from the original style. As far as some initial setup stuff goes for the game to get the best experience, there's not much I would change. I would say turn the brightness down one notch, and whatever you do, turn off the motion blur. It is really bad. It's actually some of the worst that I've ever seen in a game. Let me show you. Go into the menu, turn it on, and let's just spin the camera. You can't see anything with this motion blur. I gotta turn it off, it's gonna make me sick. And you can turn off screen space reflections, which I would do that as well because they're not good in any game really. And I actually really appreciate the fact that they let us turn them off. That is something that most games don't do. I did expect performance issues. The game does use Unreal Engine 5, and almost every UE5 game has some type of performance problems. And it seems to happen in some of the strangest locations. Sometimes it's just in a small room by yourself with nothing else in there, and the frame rate just tanks. And the thing is, it's not much better in the 30 FPS mode either. In some ways it reminds me of the original Xbox 360 release. If you played it back then, you'd remember that moving across the open world would sometimes cause the game to pause for loading. And it feels like, from what I remember, some of those hitches are happening in the same places that they did before. For a bit more on the visuals, the original game was very bright, with bloom and great contrast. This one goes for a more realistic look, and like every other game now, they have made it hazy. Don't know why every developer does this now, but they do. It's annoying that we just can't have a good, clear picture quality anymore. Not everything needs to look like you're in the middle of a dust storm. Also, I don't really care for the new menu system. I preferred the original. It's not that the new menus are bad, they're just a bit clunky and overly complicated. They should have went with a Skyrim system, it was much better. Overall, it's the weirdest experience I've had with a remaster. I truly love the game. It's one of my favorites of all time. I remember buying the collector's edition when it was released. I still have my Septim coin here somewhere. It's just an incredible world to get lost in. And I do think something got lost in translation with the new realistic art style. But it is hard to get better than Oblivion. Anyway, let me know if you're playing Elder Scrolls Oblivion for the first time, or you're diving back into the classic again. What do you think about the decision to just shadow drop the game out of nowhere? I will have a full review coming out soon because, as we all know, the higher level you get, the more quests you have open, is when Oblivion can decide to go completely haywire and collapse on you. So I have to check all that out before I can give it a score. Thanks for watching, and would you kindly leave a like and subscribe, and I will talk to y'all later.